As I've mentioned a number of times over the course of this series, most financial collapses do not begin with one catastrophic decision, one reckless purchase, or one major mistake. It usually begins quietly: a slightly larger home, a newer vehicle, more dining out, more subscriptions, more financing, more recurring obligations. And slowly, the household system changes. At first, the changes feel manageable. Then they become normal. Then, eventually, the household no longer owns the lifestyle owns the household. And this is where lifestyle expansion becomes extremely dangerous financially. Because lifestyle expansion does not merely increase spending, it restructures liquidity, contribution flexibility, optionality, survivability, and future freedom. In this video, we are going to examine how lifestyle expansion quietly rewires the household operating system, how recurring obligations become structural pressure systems, and why rising income does not automatically produce rising resilience. Because financially, the real danger is not spending more. The real danger is becoming structurally dependent on maintaining the current lifestyle. Lifestyle expansion usually follows rising income, but this creates a critically important systems problem because many households treat rising income as permission to permanently expand recurring obligations. This is enormously important because recurring obligations behave very differently from one-time discretionary spending. One-time spending disappears. Recurring obligations remain embedded in the system. And over time, they begin functioning like fixed structural pressure systems. The progression often looks like this: slightly larger home, newer vehicle, upgraded furniture, more restaurant spending, higher end vacations, financing additional consumption, private schooling, extracurricular activities, premium subscriptions, lifestyle normalization. At each stage, the increases feel small, but collectively, they fundamentally change the structure. This is one of the most dangerous aspects of lifestyle expansion: psychological normalization effect. Because once a lifestyle becomes normalized, the household psychologically reclassifies luxuries into necessities. And once that occurs, reducing spending becomes emotionally painful. This is critically important because structurally the household loses flexibility, adaptability, and future maneuverability without fully realizing it. Now we arrive at one of the most important concepts in the entire series: the difference between fixed and flexible obligations. Flexible spending can usually be adjusted quickly. Examples include dining out, entertainment, discretionary purchases, travel, and hobbies. But fixed obligations behave differently. Fixed obligations continue regardless of economic conditions, regardless of uncertainty, and regardless of income stability. This is critically important because every time lifestyle expansion converts discretionary spending into recurring obligation, the household system becomes more rigid. Here are some examples of fixed lifestyle expansion. They include larger mortgage payments, vehicle financing, financed furniture, private schooling, luxury leases, recurring subscription ecosystems, fixed vacation expectations, club memberships, escalating insurance obligations. Each additional obligation reduces future flexibility, compresses liquidity, and increases break-even pressure. Here's the system's insight. Most households do not collapse because they bought one expensive thing. They become fragile because recurring obligations quietly accumulate faster than resilience. That is an extremely important distinction. Now we connect lifestyle expansion directly to contribution margin thinking. This may become one of the signature frameworks of this entire channel, because households rarely analyze how much income remains after recurring structural obligations are paid. This remaining flexibility is critically important because that residual cash flow funds investing, liquidity reserves, entrepreneurship, opportunity capture, and survivability during uncertainty. Suppose, for example, a household's income is $12,000 per month. Its original fixed obligation is $4,000 per month, and so its contribution flexibility is $8,000 per month. Now, after lifestyle expansion, fixed obligations rise to $8,500 per month, and the remaining flexibility is $3,500 per month. Notice what happened. Income may have increased, but resilience declined dramatically. This is one of the most misunderstood realities in personal finance. So why does this matter? As contribution flexibility shrinks, the household becomes increasingly dependent on continued income stability. It's less adaptable and more vulnerable to shocks. This is exactly the same logic studied in operating leverage, corporate finance, and FP&A, or financial planning and analysis. Because high fixed cost structures increase fragility, break-even pressure, and survivability risk. Now we arrive at one of the deepest concepts in the episode, because lifestyle expansion often creates the appearance of wealth. Externally, the household may appear successful, established, prosperous, and financially strong. But internally, the system may now carry high leverage, compressed liquidity, elevated recurring obligations, and narrow optionality corridors. This creates hidden fragility, and hidden fragility is extremely dangerous because it remains invisible until uncertainty arrives. Externally, we see a larger home, luxury vehicles, premium lifestyle, and visible consumption. Internally, though, there's thinner liquidity, elevated fixed costs, reduced adaptability, and increasing dependence on stable income. This divergence becomes critically important because systems often appear strongest immediately before fragility becomes visible. At this point, the household may earn more, consume more, and appear more successful externally. But structurally, the system may now possess greater rigidity, lower flexibility, higher fixed cost pressure, and significantly elevated shock sensitivity. And this is where the real system analysis begins, because in Part B, we are going to examine lifestyle fragility, inflation sensitivity, income dependency, shock scenarios, optionality collapse, and survivability under uncertainty. Because lifestyle expansion does not merely increase consumption, it changes how dependent the household becomes on continued economic stability. And ultimately, the goal is designing a system capable of preserving future freedom.